This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, joined by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to go over another difficult week at Manchester United. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And on Facebook as well. I think we've got it on Facebook. If not, sorry about that. If you're on YouTube, join in the questions and the comments in the comment section. If you're watching the replay, you can always still join in the conversation. We reply to comments on there after the event as well. And if you're listening back on the audio podcast, please like and subscribe on the platform you're listening on. Right, a lot to go through this week, Paul. The first thing I'm going to do is address Mason Greenwood. It's not a subject we're going to be covering. It's an ongoing criminal investigation. It does nobody any favours at all to discuss it. Suffice it to say, obviously, we condemn any violence, domestic violence as well, and we'll always support the victims. That's all we're going to say on that matter. We'll talk about the football now. A somber week, a lot to pick from, Paul. We'll start with a transfer window. It closed last week. Van der Beek went on loan. Everton, it seems like a sensible move. There was an option for him to go down to Palace, but he can stay in the Northwest. A sensible move in that, he's gone for him to get some game time. But it just strikes, the entire thing just strikes you as odd, right? Because he should have been playing at United. There's no reason for why he shouldn't be playing at United, even to give him the chance to fail, even if he's not good enough. We've not even given him the chance.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst thing. It's not as if he's played games and he's been underwhelming or anything like that. I don't think at the moment in time any United fan can make 100% assessment on him, on his ability to play for Manchester United, because he was never allowed a run of games to prove a point. He was never really allowed to what was deemed as a United top starting 11. He seemed to always, when he did play in. When he went in, he mostly felt they were like meaningless games when he did start. And then he was coming on with sub for anything between 4 and 10 minutes to go in games. But every time you saw him, he went out with a really good attitude. And that's the one thing on his part. And that's the one thing I think, a lot of United fans will respect him for. He never put it out there publicly that he was sulking about it. And everyone would know that outside, he mostly very, very disappointed. Quite a few miles away from home, from friends and family, and he's not playing. It must have been very, very difficult for him mentally. So it'd be a breath of fresh air to go somewhere where he's wanted at this moment in time, which make a big difference in his life, and that will lift him as well. And he's put himself under the microscope really, and going to Everton, because obviously straight away coming from Manchester United, Everton fans will be a little bit sceptical. So he's going to have to hit the ground running, but he's played in big occasions, for his club, in the Dutch league, and he's played for he's played in Champions League as well. He's an international, so he should overcome it. Given the fact that there was a method in the madness of Manchester United signing him.
Yes, maybe. It's funny that you would think Everton hopefully will be a good move because you've got a new manager. He's going to have to play him. You would have thought if he doesn't, then something seriously wrong there. We wait and see. Obviously, wishing him the best. Another matter that's less simple, a little bit more complicated. Jesse Lingard. So he had a loan move touted to Newcastle, and it was falling apart, and then it was back on for different things. They were basically being funny with it, about the amount of fee. And that could have all been clarified and done before last Sunday. And then Sunday happened. And United were obviously reluctant to lose another forward player. One thing I'm really cautious about commenting on, because you don't know everything. And obviously, mental health, you shouldn't make flippant comments about this if someone's struggling with mental health and everything like that. But you look at it at face value, and you look at everything that's happened the way it has. The fact that the manager's talked openly about it again, like he did with Martial, and it does seem to be a situation partly of his own making, right? This Lingard thing. I mean, he didn't sign a new contract. He's made these very public posts about playing for West Ham, and even if the first one was a mistake, he knew the reaction, so he's made further ones to upset people. He's not really attempted to diffuse that. And obviously it's a difficult situation, and he's made no apology to the fans. And by the way, if he thinks he doesn't owe them an apology, then fair enough, but that's the situation, is what it is. And then having been complaining that, he technically, I guess he wants to move, that he's not going to get game time, and then there's game time for him, and his head's not right to play. It does, for me, I feel like there's a bit of an unfortunate consequential thing with Lingard because of obviously the other events, but still, there are ways and means to handle it, and it just seems like it's been handled horrendously. I mean, timing being right, and if Newcastle really wanted him, he should already be at St James's Park on a permanent deal. So it's not United's fault that Newcastle didn't put up the money. United are entitled to ask for if Newcastle were entitled to ask for 50 million for Sean Longstaff, United are probably entitled to ask them to squeeze a little bit more out for Lingard. Where do you stand on this? Because it seems a bit of a mess.
First of all, Sean Longstar, 50 million. I mean, I wonder why would Manchester United want him in the first place anyway. I did find that quite astounding, to be perfectly honest, really astounding. But with the Jesse Lingard one, and I just find it, in the moment, he's just typifying what I foresee as the modern day player, to be perfectly honest. Quite content to be at a big club, quite content to be sitting around next to big name players. Social media is important, so I've got to have pictures taken next to all in summary there at the club, and no great desire to be playing. Quite content just to be around, putting on a jersey and being associated with Manchester United. If he had a desire to play and prove a point, would have been playing against Middlesbrough. And it's so easy just to come up and just say, I'm not right in today's world, and then everyone has to go, okay, what do you want to do? And what he should want to do is to go out there and prove a point and throw it back in everyone's face, and for Manchester United to be screaming, Manchester United fans to be screaming in whatever way they want at the club, for him to be actually on the verge of leaving the club when they believe he should be there. That's the biggest issue, is that a lot of United fans want him to go for his own sake, to go and play football, for him to go and become something, and then they'll turn around and just say, maybe we should have kept him, but we're really pleased that he's happy now and he's playing regular football. And there was a golden opportunity for him. And I've said this many times to Wayne. I sit in a big West Ham area, and they all they've done is talk about from what he done for them and how he changed things, and he added something differently, to Manchester, to West Ham, and they would have been happy to have him. The fans, they took to a Manchester United player, which is a difficult job, by the way, because they're not big on Manchester United at all. Still, there's not as much as West Ham fans hate Tottenham, but still, United run it close. But he'd gone and done everything. He really done the hard yards to get to the level he got to, and it was easy. If he'd have just made that move, then he could have come in and he would have had a nice little path in. He could have maybe dropped a little bit in form, but they would still remembered what he'd done during that time, and knowing that the level he'd set, and for him to try and get there ASAP. But he blew that away by leaving, by going back, and then having the picture within 24 hours, him with Ronaldo. And then all the other little things going on. And I think all it needed really, because modern day players, they don't really a lot of them want to speak. They'd rather let things roll and headlines in papers. Why can't they just come out and just say what their intentions are? If he's not happy, man, speak out and say, I'm not getting game time. I've been here through some great times, enjoyable times, the FA Cup final and what he'd done with the gut, everything like that. It's very difficult for me to be around it. I need to maybe start I need somewhere new to go to recharge myself, to feel good about myself, to go and prove to everyone how good I am. That's all it needed. And then straight away, someone within the club might think, oh, we might have to do that just to clear him, whatever it is. And he hasn't said that. It's just sitting there and letting stories go on and on and on. Things escalate, and straight away you don't know where you are. People get the wrong vibes about him, and then we're getting what's happening now. People questioning because he said he needed space and whatever again, when he had a bit of space before. I think he flew off somewhere before, and then all of a sudden now he needs space again. How much space do you need? To be perfectly honest, the man in the factory can't ask for space. Well, he can, but then what will happen is he mostly doesn't get paid, or he lose part of his holiday, which he'd rather say to have a holiday with his family. So he can't just decide, oh, I'm not right, boss, and not come in, because the boss will say, well, I'll tell you what, have a lot of space and call it time, call it weeks and months and years, because I'm not going to employ you anymore. Yeah. So I just really, I'm a bit disappointed, really, that you'd rather see someone like Jesse Lingard show a bit of character, turn around and just say, no, I want to go, I want to prove myself. Let me get out there, because at the end of the day, what is he now? He's 29, 30. Yeah. People aren't going to be bothered soon. They're going to judge him by his age. They're going to judge him how many games he's played. He needs regular football, and he's got to remember as well. Somehow he got into an England squad from being on loan at another club, which is a rare thing, a strange thing to happen, really. I don't think it's a right thing that should happen. I think it's quite disrespectful, on the parent club who have let him out on loan. But still, it happens. So why doesn't he want to get back playing regular and then really go in there and maybe put down roots on an England, a spot within an England squad? Why hasn't he got that about him to want to do that, Wayne?
No, I don't want to be unkind with comparisons, but I always think, like you mentioned the FA Cup final, and Lee Martin scored the winner in 1990, and in a couple of years Lee Martin was out. We were moving on to the next thing, and I feel like, and Lee Martin had a respectable career. I'm not dissing Lee at all. What I'm trying to say is that you move on, and you get different squads of players, because for certain moments you have these peaks, and then you move on. That's what football's all about. It just feels like we've stuck with Jesse, and he stuck with us with all these different transitions, when really you probably needed a manager who had a longer period in time over this squad to be able to weed out these kind of players who are just simply not good enough for whatever reason. I'm not getting on Lingard's back, but look, history tells us, because we've witnessed the last 4 or 5 years, you can't say that these players were all good enough to win a league. They weren't. Under different managers, they've not been good enough. They're not good enough. It's the fact is there. They're not good enough. They're not good enough to win the league. They haven't even been good enough to win trophies. They haven't even been good enough to play consistently good football. And they can have these different excuses, but that's the level. And the problem is that United have, instead of being at the level that everyone thinks that United should be at, they're not. They're a level like 6th or 7th in the league. And the reason why they are is because the players are also complicit in that, and they've got to take responsibility. They're not good enough. They're not good enough for a United team that's going to be challenging to win the league. It's a fact. It's a fact, because it hasn't happened. We've all got to face that. It is what it is. And it is disappointing. It's disappointing when he's had that opportunity. He's had that opportunity to leave. Nobody, he's not signed a new contract. It's been there for him to sign if he wanted to. The club would have probably kept him on. Like they probably will with Paul Pogba. A contract's been put in front of him. It's not because the club want him to leave. Do you know what I'm trying to say? They're at least making a token effort to keep him. They're quite happy to settle for another 3 or 4 years of the same, which is ridiculous for me. They got the opportunity to sweep the brush and get rid of like a group of these players. Do it for all parties, like you said. Lingard, get your numbers up, build a career instead of being a peripheral. Instead of having another year like this, like the same for Pogba. Since he won the World Cup, he's just been average seasons, and then half of them spent injured. Nobody wants that. He shouldn't want that. Do you know?
That's the bit I don't get, Wayne. I really don't understand it. I had after I got my injury, and had that bit after, then David May initially started in, and Gary's got in, and I sat around in my final season, and it was horrible. It wasn't enjoyable. I was mostly pulling faces all over the place, mostly because I'd been there. I'd enjoyed a really good period, and I was like a green-eyed monster. I wanted to be there because they were still winning games, and I wanted to be around because I had smelt it, I had tasted it, I'd been involved in everything that had been good about Manchester United, and all of a sudden I was out of it, and I found it very difficult to enjoy it. Jesse Lingard is no different. Paul Pogba in certain ways is not. He's been around there. That your ego's got to want to be around. You want the adulation that goes with it. You can't just want to sit around and think that's the easy. Surely you must want, and you want to be there with them. So when they've played a game with players, all of a sudden they'll go and change. You're out running on the pitch. By the time you get in the dressing room, they've moved on to where they're going. You feel like a spare part in the end, and that's the bit I don't understand. Jesse Lingard hasn't come out. He should have come out and said, "I haven't." The reason why I haven't signed a contract, to let people know. Don't let other people make stories up, and these so-called people who call themselves journalists or say a source tells me, a bit like the people who listen to me and you talk, and then all of a sudden they take it from here and they put it in newspapers, and like they talk to me or talk to you, they haven't. They're lazy. So don't add to them. Don't give them. Don't throw anything on the fire for them. Say it yourself. The reason why you haven't signed, everyone knows, and it kills all the people out there who are being lazy and like making themselves seem bigger because they think they know things. Players have got to speak up. You've been paid good money. What's wrong in telling the people out there who like you as a person, enjoyed you as a footballer, respected you as a footballer for their football club? Tell them the truth. The reason why you haven't signed. And one of the reasons is that you want the free transfer because you can virtually up your wages because of it. That's one of the reasons why you want it. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Say it as it is. Everyone's second guessing it already anyway.
Mm-hmm. My concern when Solskjaer was sacked was that it seemed like a convenient excuse for this squad, and we've talked over. It's actually 2 years today since we did our first podcast, so happy anniversary to us. But for a long portion of that time, we've talked about how the players they've taken every excuse given to them, and as soon as you sack Solskjaer, it's an excuse because it's saying that the manager was the problem. And from my point of view, we've talked about this. Solskjaer was talking up a title challenge that we weren't ready for, but he accepted the responsibility of it, and he suffered the consequence of that. Now, as soon as Solskjaer has gone, it seems like all the standards have dropped. There's no clear objective. I know we'll talk about the FA Cup game in a moment, but it's like the season's just gone to ruin. Like the owners just decided, in sacking the manager, you knew what was going to happen, especially in appointing an interim one. They're not going to sanction a transfer in January. When it was obvious, so when Solskjaer was there, that we still needed at least 2 or 3 players to challenge for the league. At least 2 or 3. Now it looks more like 5 or 6 again. For whatever Solskjaer's faults, and this isn't defending him. The facts are we finished 3rd and then 2nd. We knew the team still had deficiencies. I just look at this season and I think this is one where all the failures start from the top with the owners. You can see that. Secondly, with the players because they've let themselves down. And thirdly, with the manager. I think this time a manager can escape most of the blame. Either Rangnick or Solskjaer for various reasons. I'm not saying Solskjaer was good enough. He wasn't. We've talked about that already. He should have been dismissed. The performances and results were horrific. I just look at it and I just think, really, you've let January go. You've let January go and you haven't signed anyone, and you're just basically saying we were writing this off from November. So yeah, let's talk about the reason why we're writing it off. Middlesbrough FA Cup, pretty much the strongest side. I know people complain and said, "Oh, Henderson for De Gea is stronger." Obviously, yeah, De Gea is first choice. To all intents and purposes, that was Manchester United's first team, and they took on Middlesbrough. Laboured. Paul went to extra time. 30 shots, some of them quite good opportunities. Ronaldo had a bunch of chances. He obviously missed a penalty. Bruno missing from about 3 yards when it seemed easier to put it in. It's the post, and a whole host of chances, half chances as well on top of the 30. Only I think about 9 on target. It's a weird one because a lot of people are saying like we played all right because the numbers speak for themselves and we played, we controlled the game. But I mean, you expect to control the game against Middlesbrough. I know, our standards aren't very high at the moment, but they're a championship team. You've got to be expecting to control it. It's not a badge of honour to control the game against them. To fail you to convert. I know Ronaldo, all right, everyone has one of those days, and a lot of people now saying that's a sign of his age. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just one of those days where nothing goes in, and it didn't. It's got to be better than that, Paul. You've got to be. You can't. You can't lose against Middlesbrough on penalties. However you lose, however you go out of the FA Cup at home. To me, going out of the FA Cup at home anyway is a disappointment to a lower league team. It doesn't matter how many shots you've had. It's an embarrassment, isn't it? That's the top and bottom of it.
Yeah, there's no way you can get away from it. It's not a nice feeling. You have to deal with it. No different to Leicester City, you know. Even to the likes of West Ham and Chelsea. I mean, Chelsea could have been embarrassed if Plymouth had scored that late penalty. West Ham, I mean, I don't know how you call it, how they got away with it, but I don't think there's a word out yet that can actually assess how West Ham got through what they got through. To be perfectly honest, as well. So for United, and I think everyone in their own minds didn't go there 100%. I'm sure there's always people worried about that game because Boro, yes, they were always have a big crowd behind them. Their form had been good. The big change since Neil Warnock's gone and Chris Wilder's come in, and Chris Wilder, a well-respected manager in today's football world for what he's done all the way through his career, but more noticeable because of bringing Sheffield United into the Premier League, keeping them there, then going out again, which was a crying shame really because of in the circumstances how they went down. But they're a decent team. That's their form shows that as well since he's been there. But like you say, just having 30 shots, but not whatever attempts at goals and not scoring, is still an embarrassment to Manchester United. Then losing on penalties isn't good either. When you look at it, I mean, it was said to me, and I remembered that was it when we lost to Southampton in the FA Cup at home, and I think we had a goal disallowed. I think it's proven it went over the line, but it was disallowed, and we would come out and say we were the better team in that game. But we got knocked out. I still remember Giggsy as he went towards the penalty spot, flicking the ball up with his feet as well as he done that. But that was Ryan at the time, and you wouldn't want to take that away from a young player, that kind of confidence in themselves. But it was no different, and it's poor, and it was United's best chance or only chance of silverware. Now the season's got to be finished, and it's Manchester United talking about finishing in the top four. Because I don't think anyone's going to talk about winning the Champions League. It's great that they're still in it, but I don't think anyone's going to talk about Manchester United winning the Champions League. Because at the moment in time, they're not good enough to even to compete to win our own domestic league.
No, yeah. Talk about a team who were just briefly. I touch on the Munich anniversary, and we've probably talked about it before. I'm just interested in this, Paul. I mean, you came to the club. It's funny now we're at this point in history where we look back and pretty much everyone, it's only Bobby Charlton left of the survivors. When you arrived at the club, there were a lot of survivors still there, and they'd frequently be around the club as well because the club sort of kept them in the fold. What was it like being around those people? Being through so much.
Well, it's one of them initially. I mean, everyone at my time would have heard about the Munich disaster. It's only would have heard about it, but it's only when you get to the club, and then you obviously pick up more in it. Then you'll see the clock outside and the little bits all around it, and then it pops up on you. The 6th of February happens. 6th of Feb comes round, and all of a sudden you're told that you've got to put a blazer on. We've got to do this and it's, as a Manchester United player, you fall into it and you end up living it still, even when you've left.
Yeah,
it's still always there, and there's always a passing of somebody, and which makes it even more sadder. But when it comes around, I always think about a game, one of the games we played over it, and we played Everton. We had Everton at home. And one of my good friends in football was Ian Snowden, and he was playing in that game, and we won the game 1-0. So I see Snowy in the players' lounge after, and he turned around and said that all their players, he said, He said they didn't want to win. He said they felt what it was like, the atmosphere, everything about it. He said, and we could have scored loads against Everton that day. The Everton players felt it. He goes, we felt we just couldn't get into it. We found it a really difficult game to play in. At that time, and it was even to actually playing it because the emotions that were going round, and obviously there was, you think there would be lots of some of the players, survivors would have been there, people who were supporting United that time and could remember the whole thing, still living with it themselves, and it all coming to them. But as a player, it was a difficult one, to be perfectly honest. And all you want to do, you wanted to lift yourself and be up for it, because there was a lot of people who were hoping that you was going to give them the best possible, two of the best possible things on that occasion was to play well and win.
So when you move forward with that, Paul, I think the occasion that you're talking about, I think it wasn't Munich, it was the Matt Busby passing away, wasn't it?
I am. Yeah, that was one. But there was
Munich was straight after that, the anniversary. Yeah. And I'm just wondering, so when that happens, obviously Busby passing puts everything into that kind of perspective as well, because he was a survivor. And you move on. Does it change how you approach every game as a United player? I'm not saying that you could think about it every single time, but it just becomes part of your psychological makeup. Then I've got to play well. I've got to, I'm representing something different than what I was before you knew about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I went to United, you know that everything is being scrutinised, especially after my first season when we failed to win the league. Then you knew the next season there was more people watching you.
Yeah,
and you was under more pressure, and then you achieved your personal goal. You achieved the club's personal goal of winning that first title in 26 years, and then the following season there's going to be more people watching you because they want to see what you're going to do next. They're going to want a lot of them are going to want you to go and do it again, but there's even more who want you to fail because you've gone and done it already. And that is life of playing for Manchester United. And I think that's one of the things a lot of the players don't realise, that when they go there, they don't understand the immense pressure they're under of actually achievements. You go to Manchester United, you go there because you want to win trophies. You want to play for United to give yourself the best possible chance of winning trophies, but you want to win it for that club because if you bring silverware home, what a difference it makes to your life. Doing what you're supposed to love, and that is playing football. If you love football, you want to play for the biggest club you possibly can, and then after you've got to that big club, then you want to try and win medals. And then you've got to take all that stress on, and that's why certain players people look at them, they go, "Why isn't he doing it? What's going on?" It's because they've found everything, that the occasion of playing for that club week in, week out, very, very difficult because of the standards that have to be kept. And if we're talking about today, one of the big things about playing for a club like Manchester United is that individually and collectively, you have to be consistent. You have to be. When we talk about the greatest players, all the greatest players we can talk about were consistent. That's one of the. When you talk about really real life legends, they were all consistent in what they'd done. There was a level that they went up, which they kept pushing up all the time, but the levels when they were going down didn't drop very far. They just stood at a certain point. You knew what you was getting. There's not enough of them now in that Manchester United team at this moment in time.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's you absolutely bang on. It's a difficult shirt to carry sometimes, especially. I mean, and once you become aware of that responsibility and the privilege, if you can become aware of it, I guess some players might not even be. You don't know without talking to them. It's my privilege to be able to talk to you about it. So yeah, let's talk about the forthcoming games this week. Burnley tomorrow, 1 win all season. They've got a decent record at Old Trafford under Sean Dyche in recent years. They've won and drawn. I know certainly a couple of games I can remember. Was it the 2-0 was either Fernandez's first game or he was bought straight after that. So yeah, they've a decent record at Old Trafford. They know Sean Dyche knows how to set up to frustrate them, to get a good result. So it's one of those. If I'm being pessimistic, I'm saying, form goes out of the window. But I don't know, Paul. What do you make of this one? You expect United to turn it on?
The game's at Burnley, isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. I realised that as I was saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's at Burnley.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, I still remember the recent game when they played just before Christmas, and Burnley hadn't played for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. That's right.
And that just tells you about when these managers are calling for winter breaks and all that. Well, certain ones are. There must be something, a personal gain from, because players can't stop. Engines need to be run, and Burnley were ring rusty, but yet Burnley kind of in a way dominated the midfield still.
Yeah,
the only thing they did not have anything up top. They just didn't threaten enough. There was a few occasions in the first half, and even when they went 2-0 down, they mostly couldn't believe they were 2-0 down. And then when they went 3-0 down, they were kind of, what's going on here? They weren't great, but United weren't great either. That game was never really, if you watched it, you say, so they won 3-0, but then on this side of it, they're going into it off a poor result at home in the FA Cup, United, and then they go into Burnley, Turf Moor. Burnley only won one game all season. That's a horrible thing to hear, because it makes you worry that you don't want to be their second.
Mm.
So it's about the attitude of the players, and I really don't know where he's going to go. Who is he going to pick? What formation they're going to play? I really don't know what's going to happen next with United, and that's when you have this situation, a club like Manchester United having an interim manager, that tells you, in my opinion, how far they've fallen at the moment to be in that position. Players are no different. Footballers are no different to anybody who works in a factory, in an office. You need somebody who's there, love them or hate them or respect them because what they do and they're good at it, at the helm, in charge. Someone who's dictating everything down. At the moment, there's someone up there, but who's picking a team and doing it, organising it, but he's not the boss. He's not the shout and scream. He's not the one that's saying, you're out, I don't want you here, you got to go. Because he's got to answer to someone else and say, can I say that to him? I don't want him here. Oh, but we might have someone coming in who might like him, might be able to do it. It's all if, buts, and might be, can do, not sure. It's all over the place. It's not organised, Wayne, at this moment. Started off as, the big fanfare thing. And yes, he's done a few interesting press conferences, and the situation with Martial, the situation with Jesse Lingard, because he said this to maybe, what he said in the press conference didn't help Jesse Lingard and the way he was going around these. And you think so, you just need somebody to go bang. And now we're getting ifs and buts. Who's going to get them? Who's going to be the manager? Now everybody in social media wants to do their own kind of, who's it going to be? Is it going to be the Ajax manager or Pochettino? And it's the whole thing needs to be put to bed yesterday, because it's embarrassing. It's Manchester United, it's not a team. This is not a team that sits third and fourth every season worrying about relegation or anything. This is a team that's supposed to be talking about winning leagues, and they're in this situation of having someone at the helm who isn't going to be at the helm, or might be at the helm. Or he could get the job. Pip's the so-called journalist saying, he could get the job because of this. He just, at this moment in time, he's not the Manchester United manager I would expect to be there. He just hasn't got that presence to be a Manchester United manager. That might be down to it, Wayne, is the fact of he's not really showing that assertiveness, because he's not 100% sure he's going to do that job. Is he actually going to go and do the job as director of football? Is that 100% that he's definitely going to go and sit there? I don't know, because I can't believe what I read anymore, because, again, there's too many people making up a load of stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's your headline, by the way. That's going to be everywhere. But you're right. You're absolutely right, and you do worry if you're not. Well, you don't. There's no need to worry. You can see it happening. There's, again, a squad of players that don't need an excuse, but they'll take one when it's there. Do you know what I mean? And this is a good excuse for them. There's no authority. There's no direction. So why invest in a massive change of philosophy for a manager who's only temporary? This is no long-term thinking. And even if they did, they could get him out if they weren't happy about it. So, you're right. And I look at a team like Burnley. Burnley would have probably been very happy that they've got United. United or Arsenal, you know what I mean? They're always that opponent that you want to. We can get ourselves up for it. We've got a good chance of turning them over and possibly starting a good run. You know, that's how they'll see it, and that's right. They should. And we're one of those susceptible teams now who are in that position. It'll be similar for Southampton, but I look at Southampton's form pool, mid-table, win-loss draw. They drew against City recently and played pretty well, but they could easily, they just. I don't want to sound disrespectful or like I'm being flippant, but they're just a typical Southampton team, aren't they? You know what I mean? They're unpredictable. They'll give you a game, but you never know if they're not in danger of being relegated. They're not in danger of challenging for anything meaningful in the league, apart from survival being its own meaningfulness. And they're a good competitive team in the Premier League, which again, you look at United, you look at every team that they've struggled against this season. There's no easy games for United at the moment, and that's where we are with this one, right?
Yeah, we are. You would normally turn around and you virtually just go, yeah, that one's a home win, but you can't do that anymore. United, you don't know what kind of performance they're going to put up at home. You don't know what you're getting with. Before, you always knew, and if they did lose at home, it was a shock result. A team had played unbelievable, or United had just maybe not a bit like the Middlesbrough game, really, in that sense. There was, a smash and grab as such, in that sense. So it is difficult to call it. The Burnley game is still a tough one to call. It is all about the application that the team puts in initially in that early part of the game. If you get it right at the start against the Burnley, then you'll go on and you'll win the game. You'll win the game as you should win the game as a Manchester United team. But I really don't know. And you say Southampton are hot and cold. They'll turn up at Old Trafford and they'll just enjoy the moment. They generally do come there and play quite well, Southampton. But it's coming to the point again where United are relying on individuals to win them games of football. They're hoping for somebody to get them out. They're hoping for maybe Fernandes to pull something out the bag. Maybe Ronaldo might just do something. But it's just running out of those players now. It's just, at the moment, Wayne, I feel like going round and round all the time, and everybody's got an opinion here, and you think, right, okay, that you see that, and you suddenly go, well, no, that it's flipping from one week to the next. The problem is, it's gone on under 3, 4. I don't know how many managers there's been now. Is it 4 managers there's been?
Well, you have Moyes, Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, and then obviously Harry were in terms.
Well, it's just been far too many, and there's been far too many players who have played under too many managers in their given time at Manchester United. It's a team that's supposed to be competing to win leagues, not a team fighting relegation. United shouldn't have had this many managers. A lot of these players shouldn't be there to have played under so many managers. It's not, and you're looking at managers going, and you think to yourself, well, after so many managers going, you can't blame the managers anymore. They're still, all it is the person carrying the toolbox. That's all that's changed. It's the same tools with different person carrying it to the place of work and then asking them to do a job, and they're still not doing the job.
I wonder if some of these players' reputations have been enhanced by the managers getting sacked, because there's like this impression that you get from a lot of people that, oh yeah, United have spent all this money, they should be challenging. A lot of money's been wasted, and you look at those players, they're not. I've said it earlier. The league table hasn't lied for 5 years. Do you know? We're not. But you look at them and you see the managers getting sacked, and then it's almost like, oh, they should be winning titles. They shouldn't. They're not good enough.
You can't look at it on people. The problem is that a lot of people would look at it on paper and look at the valuation and judge it on valuation. I mean, if we judge the back 4 on valuation, they should be the best. It should be one of the best back 4 in world football.
Yeah.
But they're not. They mostly are in the game of Subbuteo. That's as good as it gets because you can lean on one of them and you break them. So,
yeah, no, you're right, and I think that's a really good point about the back line because it illustrates and emphasises that exact issue. You know, they say, "Oh, the wage bill, blah blah." Well, the wage bills they've kept competitive. They've had to keep the club competitive, and no one's saying that the players don't have high ceilings. A lot of them have achieved some of the great things in the game, but collectively, it hasn't worked. And you can't, you know, you've had a world-class manager, even though he's past his sell-by date in Mourinho. They were organised for a bit. Even Solskjaer had no experience, and they were still competitive for a little bit. But, you know, I think a lot of these players, they don't want to hear it from anyone. But the ceiling's probably second or third in the league, and that's why they
I think in certain times, when we're looking at it now, and there is definitely something about this. There's a reason why Manchester United signed all of the players.
Yeah.
But after a while, nothing like anything human life. Sometimes you need someone. You need a reboot. Pull the plug out, count to 10, plug it back in again. These players need a reboot. They need a change of club.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but I talked to Martin Edwards about this recently because we were talking about the earlier. I basically asked him about giving Fergie faith. Not, you know, everyone says, "Oh, the Forest job and everything." That it wasn't necessarily about that. It was more like he signed Donegal and he signed Jim Leighton. Do you know what I mean? And then he was allowed to let them go because they weren't good enough. And Martin corrected me. He said, "Well, I don't think that they weren't good enough. I just think they were part of the stepping stone to where we wanted to be." And yeah, that's it. They were good enough for a period of time, and then you move on. And that's where we've been with a lot of these players, but they didn't move on. And when we mentioned it earlier, you mentioned it: Pogba, Lingard, Martial. They were good enough for a period of time, but for their own good, the time for them to move on and the time for them to move on, that time went 2 or 3 years ago, and we've all been in this unhappy marriage ever since, you know, and it's not good for them and it's not good for us. But, you know, it's what it is. And we'll probably be talking about it again next week when United win the games and then lose the other one. And on and on we go around the merry-go-round. Yeah, that's it for this week, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up on the channel, subscribe as well. Really appreciate that. And if you're watching, if you're listening back on the audio podcast, give us a like and review on the and subscription on the platform you're listening on. We'll be back next week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.